Monday, December 6, 2010, hearing. Tonight we have two public hearings and a preliminary subdivision site plan pre-application information session. The first matter on our agenda this evening would be the definitive subdivision of 61 Bishop Street, also known as Berkeley Ave Extension. May we hear the applicant on that matter, please? This is for a public hearing will be held for the definitive subdivision application to divide a 35,072 square foot property located at the above address and at the intersection of Berkeley Ave. The proposal includes 3 new residential lots totaling 21,789 square feet with access from a 371-foot extension on Berkeley Ave. The property is located in a traditional single-family zoning district. May we hear from the applicant, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm George Scaff, 503 Fletcher Street. I believe everybody's seen the plan, and there were a few issues with mostly with the engineering department, and we had a meeting with Lisa, and we seem to have come to some conclusion of them, but the plans were not ready in time, because the meeting, I just met with her a few days ago. So I'd ask the board if we can continue it to the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we continue to the next meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Do you feel that will give you enough time to address the issues?
It should, yes.
Okay. Motion's made and second to continue it to our next meeting. Our next meeting will be January 3rd, 2011. Just so if anybody who's here for that proposal or anybody who's watching on TV has any interest in that matter. So we do have a motion that's made and second. All in favor of continuing the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. So the subdivision, the definitive subdivision for the Bishop Street will be continued to January 3rd, 2011. Thank you, sir.
I would ask if there's anybody from the neighborhood or any questions from the people?
That I'll let you speak with whoever here and address that with them.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Because if we start the public hearing, then other consequences do attach.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving along to our next public hearing.
So
Sure.
the public hearing will be then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What happened, he just indicated that he's requested more time. What happened was, when the site plan goes out, we send out the plans that come into the Division of Plan Development. Plans go out to all the city departments, the engineering department, the water department, police department, engineering, who else we have, police, traffic, and all those comments come back to us, as well as a set of those comments go to the applicant. So what Mr. Scaff was saying is he received some comments that he addressed with the city engineer, and they're trying to address some concerns that she may have to see if they can resolve those issues. So what happened is, on the next meeting, when it comes back, we'll start that meeting that night, and hopefully we will get a new set of comments if they've sat down and reached some conclusions or not. If they haven't, we have received comments from all those departments, whether they'll be updated or not. So, and then we will have the meeting on January 3rd. Okay?
And if there's something you want to address with Mr. Scaff, I think he's available to, he can speak outside. Okay.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or issues on the Bishop Street? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. So moving along, our next matter will be a proposed zoning amendment. And this is for 301 Chelmsford Street. In accordance, with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons related to proposed amendment to the Lowell zoning ordinance under Chapter 290. The amendment would extend the neighborhood business zoning district to include the lot located at 301 Chelmsford Street, currently zoned as an urban single-family zoning district. On any zone change, the matter comes before the planning board for a recommendation only. After we vote on this matter, it has to be referred back to the city council. At that point in time, the city council will have to post and advertise for a public hearing, and the city council has the ultimate vote whether the zoning amendment does get approved or denied. So it comes before us tonight for recommendation only, and saying that, may we please hear for the applicant.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Victor Forsley, and I represent the petitioner in this particular matter. I have enlarged copies of the proposed change, if you'd rather see this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This proposal is brought before you in order to make that lot at 301 Chensford Street more universal and completed. For some reason, we could never figure out why this parcel was sectioned off the way it was. At present, it has about 3,700 square feet. It has no access to any public ways. It's surrounded by this commercial, the NB district on this side and on the other side also, and coming in from Chensford Street. To the right of the lot, it's residential and it's all built on. And this is the only parcel, as I said, in order to get into it, you'd have to build a road. It's completely landlocked. It's not big enough to build a house on, as far as I can see. And what we're trying to do is to clean up that whole area. Right now, there is parking in that area, but as you know, you cannot park cars on residential property or residentially zoned property, which makes it very difficult to carry on any type of business there. This, I believe, goes hand in hand with the intent of the statute. And if you consider the surrounding area on the Chensford Street side, it is all neighborhood business. And again, this parcel, for some reason, is landlocked, unable to be used. Now, I don't know if you get out to the property or not, but for the longest time, there was not for the longest time, but there was some buildings on the property that have been demolished now to make it a more attractive area. And we helped to continue to do that, to clean that area up. But right now, with this USF in the middle of it, it's impossible to do, because if we clean it up, we're gonna need parking there, and the residential area doesn't provide for that. Again, I feel the zoning change is proper, and it's in keeping with the objects of the zoning ordinance. That zoning ordinance that created this said we want this to be commercial, and for some reason or other, whoever drew the plan made a mistake as far as we can see, and we hope we can rectify it. The city solicitor has sent in her opinion as to the validity of a zoning change here. It doesn't have any hindrance in changing it to a new zone or to extending a zone. Actually, we're not changing it, we're just extending it, which I believe the statute applies to.
Anything else, Counselor?
Not right now, unless you have some questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, not at this point in time. Does anybody else here present want to speak in favor of the zoning change? Mr. Forsley, if you just let matters step over.
Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm familiar with the area, and I urge that the board support this proposed change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the zoning change? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Would anybody like to speak in opposition of the zoning change? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Any of the board members have any questions, concerns, or comments?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Lockhart.
The piece of property immediately in front of this lot that borders Chelmsford Street, that's an existing paved area, I believe, but,
Yes, it is.
and what is that zoned at right now? Or maybe Jerry, you can see that.
The zoning there, I believe, is NB also, Your
It
Honor.
is NB, okay. All right, that's all.
Mr. Fischett, any questions, comments?
No, just a few comments, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just looking at the zoning map and looking where we've delineated the neighborhood business district in that particular area, and this seems to be a logical request based on the boundaries that we're looking at that currently exist when you take into consideration the size and the shape of this particular parcel as it relates to the rest of the site. I know I walked it this weekend, and I think I probably parked over there. But it seems to be a reasonable request, given the current use that surrounds that particular property. And I believe, just if I could ask council as to, is the use going to be associated with that current business that's in the front right now, or is there
It'll
something?
probably be in conjunction with it to make it like a little area for businesses to be created, Mr. Fischett.
Sure. I have no problem with the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fischett. Mr. Claymore?
Is the same owner, Mr. Forsley, own the front property and this back property that's being rezoned?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
I'm familiar with the property, having lived in that area about 30 years ago, so I was very familiar with it, but I agree. I think it's a consistent use to change it so that we have the MB zone throughout, so I would certainly support it.
Okay. I just have a couple of comments. I know when I was up looking at there yesterday, anybody who's familiar with Chelmsford Street, this here is on the corner of Liberty Street. I believe the building to the right is a pizza shop now, and then it moves into the NB zone district. And the portion that they're requesting to extend to the NB zone district is only 3,694 feet, excuse me, and it is landlocked as indicated now. So this way, if they do pick up the zoning change, you'd be able to put some type of development that would be fronting Chelmsford Street, that would be consistent with the neighborhood business zone. So therefore, I have no problems with recommending to the council as well the extending the neighborhood business zone. Any other board members have any further comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the rezoning and recommend to the city council that.
Motion's been made
I'll second that.
and second for approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, chair votes yes. So therefore, we recommend approval. This matter will be referred back to the city council at a future time for a public hearing, and they'll be advertised. And as indicated earlier, the city council will have the final say whether that zoning does get continued.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Councilor.
Good night.
Where would you like him to set up, Tom? Over here?
Sure. Maybe against that wall.
Huh? You want it up
Can you
over
put it
there?
against that wall? I think the TV camera picks it out better. Keep going. Almost to the right of the TV facing this way, so the people in the audience can pick it up as well as the
yeah,
camera.
that's
Yeah,
good.
thank you, sir. That way, so it's to the right of the TV.
Do you have the microphone too from when we get there?
Do they?
Or maybe you can
We have
use
the
that.
portable one, Jerry? Or- In the future as well, Mr. Flood, we've been informed from the communication department, we can use that screen for any public hearings now.
Really?
Yeah. I inquired after one of the last meetings, I said, is that for use that the planning board can use? And they said, yes, so if we have plans that come in, the gentleman from the cable station who was present in the back room talked to us after one of the meetings we had a couple months ago. And he says, if an applicant comes in, they can speak with them, and they'd be more than happy to set up whatever they want to do, try it, and that way it's visible there, and you can also put it on both screens for the public.
A lot easier.
Yeah, so that is available to us for future consideration,
That's good.
so, because we inquired what, if we had use for those, so. So moving along, on the new business, tonight we have a preliminary subdivision and site plan pre-application review for Wood and Middlesex Street. The following individual has requested the planning board to provide a preliminary review of their proposed project at the address, the address listed below. This is not a public hearing. The project will require a public hearing as noted in the future. The planning board renders no decision related to the site plan review or subdivision, nor guarantees any future decision, whether positive or negative, on any project that receives pre-application review. The board will render no binding decision for this preliminary subdivision. This project is the intersection of Wood and Middlesex Street. The applicant is Kaufman Realty, Inc. The project construction of a standalone building for a Walgreens pharmacy with approximately 14,800 square foot gross floor area, 62 parking spaces, and includes the relocation of Edward Street. The zoning in this area is regional retail, and this will require planning board site plan review and definitive subdivision. May we hear the case for the applicant,
Mr.
please?
Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, Lowell, representing Kaufman Realty. With me tonight, I have Ben Hartley, who is from Kaufman Realty, John Cusick, who is from Bowler Engineering, who is our civil engineer, and I have Jeff Durek from Vanessa and Associates, who's our traffic engineer. And as the notice says, we're here tonight to discuss the proposed site plan for the Walgreens pharmacy at the intersection of Middlesex and Edward Street, and also the proposed subdivision. At the present time, Kaufman Realty has purchase and sale agreements for 10, 16, 19, and 35 Edward Street, along with 1745, 1747, 1767, and 1769 Middlesex Street. And they intend to combine those 8 lots and subdivide it into 3 lots, which is before you tonight, the preliminary subdivision plan. Lot 1 would contain approximately 68,000 square feet of land, and that, upon which the pharmacy would be built. Lot 2 is approximately 16,341 square feet, which is the relocation of Edward Street. And the final lot is as it exists. It's 5,513, and it's the existing home of Mr. and Mrs. LeBlanc, who are going to stay there. As the notice said, it's zoned RR Regional Retail District, and under section 12.4 of our zoning ordinance, a retail operation in excess of 5,000 square feet is allowed as of right. So the proposed use as a pharmacy is allowed at that site. Because of the new construction and the number of parking spaces, we will require site plan approval from this board, and also we will be required to get a special permit from the Board of Appeals for the proposed drive-through. One thing I didn't give to you when I submitted this was an elevation of the building, and I have plans now.
Thank you, Counselor.
It's a proposed floor plan and an elevation of the building. I think this board is fairly familiar with the project, and as you're probably aware, in January of 2010, the City of Lowell City Council did approve an order to discontinue and abandon the existing Edward Street, subject, however, to the following, which would be that the subdivision of this parcel would be approved by the City of Lowell Planning Board, that the relocation of Edward Street be built up to binder course as approved by the city engineer, that the city be bonded in a sufficient fund to make sure that Edward Street was completed, and that the city manager sign off on those requirements before the abandonment could be recorded at the registry. So all of those, they did approve the abandonment, but subject to those. So we have to come back to you for the site plan approval. We'd appreciate any comments that this board would have as to what we're proposing, so that we could incorporate them into our final plans. But I'm going to turn it over now to John Cusick of Bowler Engineering, who is our engineer, who can discuss the site plan, and then I'm sure you all have heard the concerns of traffic, and then we'll let Jeff Dirk discuss the studies he's done in the area and also the proposed improvements that we intend to put into the site. So,
Mr. Fleck, can I just ask you one question?
yep.
I heard you, but I didn't write it down properly. You said there'd be 3 lots, and could you tell me what the square footage was on the first 2 lots? You said
First
it, but
lot was 68,026,
the first one was 68?
026, which is lot 1.
Right, okay,
Second one is 16,341, which is lot 2, which is Edward Street.
okay. So lot
Yeah,
1 is Walgreens, lot 2 is Edward Street, and lot 3 is
that's
the
the-
blank property in the back. Okay,
It's
thank you.
existing, there's no change to that.
All right, that was my, okay,
But what we did is we brought the road up there so it would show the access to the soccer fields.
all right. Thank you, Counselor.
There's a microphone over there if you want to stand over there, John.
Excuse me, is the green light on that? I couldn't hear it amplifying.
No,
No.
on the bottom.
Let's see. Is that? Not working, Chair? If not, you could, if you want to hold one of those microphones there and just push the button.
We'll put in for some new batteries for next week.
If you push the button in front of you, there should be a green light that pops on.
There you go. Does that work?
Thank you.
That's it.
So I'm just asking you to stop the beginning again, please. I apologize for that.
Absolutely. John Cusick with Bowler Engineering for the record. And as was mentioned, we are looking to prepare a subdivision plan to consolidate the numerous lots that are present on the property here and relocate Edward Street. Right now, right about here is where Edward Street's located. We would shift it over to the, I believe it's the easterly side of the proposed premises. Once that does occur, the building would be proposed in the central section of the lot. The building is approximately 14,800 square feet. There's parking on 3 sides of the building, totaling, I think, 62 parking spaces in all, which complies with the zoning regulations. Access to the building would be from Middlesex Street here with a right-in, right-out driveway. There would be full access driveways located on Edward Street. Edward Street would continue to provide access, obviously, to the fields to the rear of the rear of the site. The building is oriented such that the front corner is facing at the intersection. You have some of the loading facilities towards the rear. Drive-through is located at this location here. There's probably room for about 7 or 8 cars to queue back to this point, and a few additional if you were going to go here, but generally you wouldn't find that much of a queue for a pharmacy. The drainage on the site would likely be made up of an underground system, perhaps a small above-ground system here. We would be in full compliance with the Massachusetts stormwater requirements. We'd be connecting into the existing utilities that are available in the vicinity. We haven't gone through the final design yet, but we have done some preliminary diligence and research, and everything appears to be in the appropriate spots for connection. And with that, it's pretty general layout. I can go into some site-specific questions on this, or we can get into the traffic and then answer questions at the end, whichever you prefer.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Jeffrey Dirk. I'm a vice president with Vanessa & Associates, and we're the traffic engineers for the project. I'm also a licensed professional civil engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and a certified professional traffic operations engineer. As Attorney Flood had mentioned, we prepared the traffic study for the project. And this is actually one of 2 traffic studies that were prepared for the Walgreens proposal. There's been a lot of traffic studies in the area unrelated to this project that we've had the opportunity to be able to review as we went about conducting our traffic study. The specific traffic study that we prepared that's before you was done in this year, so 2010. The prior study was done in 2007, so we've updated all of the conditions in that traffic study.
Could I interrupt you 1 second? Do you have a copy of that plan?
I do. I apologize. I'm going to hand those out to you now so that you can see a lot of the details that I'm going to talk about in terms of the improvements.
Thank you.
So if you may, I'll approach.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the traffic study itself, you've heard presentations on those before, but essentially we collected existing traffic volume information in the area, very important so that we understand existing conditions. And I'll just give you some facts. A lot of these you may already know. Middlesex Street accommodates about somewhere between 20 and 21,000 vehicles per day, two-way traffic over 24 hours. It really doesn't vary much on a weekday compared to a Saturday. It's about the same volume. Looking at the Rourke Bridge, on a weekday it accommodates about 35,000 vehicles, two-way again over 24 hours. On a Saturday, the number is slightly lower. It's about 25,000, so about a 10,000 vehicle difference in terms of the traffic volumes on a weekend versus a weekday. Peak hour traffic numbers are about 10% of those values. So you've got somewhere around 2,000 vehicles during the peak hour on Middlesex Street, and on a weekday about 3,500 over the Rourke Bridge and less on a Saturday. We also looked at pedestrian volumes in the area, bicycle volumes, not a lot of bicycle activity on the roadways there given the volume of traffic. There are sidewalks, and when I talk about the improvements, you'll see that we're enhancing a lot of those because we do want to make this safe to be able to be walked to from the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood pharmacy. We want to make sure that we have safe connections. Bus service in the area, the Lowell Regional Transit Authority does have, I believe it's bus route 17 that serves the area, so we are accessible by bus as well. I think the stop's on the southwest corner, and so there's crosswalks to be able to get over to the project site. And when we're looking at the project's impacts, we're looking 5 years in the future. So the year 2015, we're accommodating growth in the city and other projects. And then we're looking at how this project may influence those future traffic volumes. Specific to the project, we expect that the project, in terms of new traffic to the area, is going to add, on an average weekday, about 982 vehicle trips. So again, that's two-way. So over the course of the operational days, however many hours the facility is operating or is open, it's about 491 vehicles in, 491 out. During that peak traffic volume hours, so the highest volume hour in the morning between 7 and 9, we expect it'll add about 30 new vehicles to the roadway. The highest traffic volume hour in the evening, so between 4 and 6 in the evening, we expect the project would add about 150 new vehicles. Again, that's two-way traffic, 75 in, 75 out. On a Saturday, again, the highest traffic volume hour would add about 130 vehicles, 65 in, 65 out. In terms of how it uses the roadway network, if we look at existing traffic patterns in the area, about 35% of that traffic comes over the Rourke Bridge. 25% of it is using Middlesex Street and it's oriented to the east. 20% on Middlesex Street to the west. The balance, which is about 20%, would be on Wood Street and would be coming to and from the south. And we expect, again, it's a neighborhood pharmacy. We're hoping to draw traffic customers from the neighborhood area, so we're hoping that a lot of this traffic, instead of coming into the city of Lowell, it's actually generated within the city itself. The pharmacy provides another opportunity for customers to patronize a pharmacy in the area, so we're hoping, again, to draw from the general neighborhood area. In terms of understanding what's going on for traffic and safety, a lot of these things are not new, so just in terms of facts of what's happening, the intersection of Middlesex and Wood, we look at the number of crashes that are happening there. As a traffic engineer, we look at the most 3 recent years for which data is available. There's been about, over a 3-year period, there's been about 100 crashes at that intersection. It's number 2 in terms of the high crash locations within the regional planning district that you're located. So this is the second highest crash location in the regional planning area. Most of those crashes happen at the intersection, and they involve angle crashes, so basically left-turning vehicles colliding with through traffic in there, and that has to do with sight distance issues at the intersection. There's also a lot of rear-end crashes, and that can be a result of a number of factors. A lot of them are sight distances, the function of the traffic signal, and just the fact that there's a lot of traffic going through that intersection and people trying to hurry to get through there. The other thing is we look at operations, so what's happening there in terms of delays and queuing. To no surprise, that intersection's operating at its design capacity today. So if we're measuring the volume of traffic versus the capacity of the intersection, and we take a ratio of those two, it's at 1.0, which means it's operating at its design capacity. So basically our challenge is, as we're looking at this, we want to embrace the neighborhood in terms of the improvements we're doing. We have to address safety. That's the first thing we need to do. And then the other thing that we have to do is add enough capacity to that intersection so that we're doing, in essence, a no-harm condition, so that we add enough capacity so that we can accommodate the volume of traffic from the project. It can be accommodated safely, and if we can add additional capacity to accommodate that future condition, that's what we're trying to achieve, safety and enhanced capacity. So what I've handed out to you is a plan that we developed with the former city traffic engineer. After we crunched all these numbers, looked at what was happening at the intersection, we came up with a series of improvements. And essentially, I'll walk you through what the plan's depicting, and we'll basically go from the project side, head to the intersection, and then look at both of the Wood Street approaches and the Rourke Bridge. What you see happening along the project frontage was mentioned in the initial presentation. So Edward Street gets relocated. It's roughly opposite Canal Street. So what we've done, that is actually an improvement because it pulls that intersection further away from the Wood Street intersection with Middlesex Street. So where that traffic, if it's exiting from the fields, instead of coming out in the middle of the queue that happens from that traffic signal, it's actually coming up at the back of that queue. So it's more efficient in terms of getting people in and out of the street there because it's outside of the influence area of the Wood Street intersection. The other thing that you see we're doing is widening Middlesex Street so that we are able to do two things. The queuing that's happening is traffic is heading into the intersection, so it's heading westbound on Middlesex Street. We're providing 2 lanes further back along the approach there so that traffic can actually get into a lane. Middlesex Street, as you're aware, turns from basically a 3-lane area up at the intersection, quickly turns back to 2 lanes. So we're extending that 3-lane cross-section further back towards the project site so traffic can actually get into the lane, and we're reducing the queuing that's happening. The other thing the widening allows us to do is create a left turn lane to go into Edward Street. So you can see there's a short little left turn pocket that we're providing that allows people going to our project as well as going to the recreational fields. They have a separate turning lane so that through traffic can continue unimpeded along Middlesex Street to the east, so heading to the downtown area. The other thing that it allows us to do is if you look at where Columbia Street is, people who are coming out of, actually entering Columbia Street, they have a short little segment of left turn lane that allows them to, again, they can get out of the through travel lane, get into the left turn lane, and then make the left turn lane so they're not backing up through traffic. So those are improvements that allow us to get more traffic up to the signal so we can actually process it. It allows us to sort out some of the turning movements that are happening and get them into their own turning lane. So that's an improvement. It allows us to create some capacity. It also allows us to have a safer condition because those added turning lanes get left turns out of the way of through traffic, and it deals with some of those angle type crashes that are happening. On the eastbound approach to Middlesex Street, so now we're to the left of the intersection, we're extending the left turn lane that's there. Again, the situation is this left turn pocket that's there today, there's too much traffic that wants to turn left to head onto the Rourke Bridge, so it queues back for some distance. Extending the left turn lane allows us to get those left turners into their own lane and let through traffic get up to the stop line here so the signal can actually process the traffic. The other thing that it does is it gives us a better alignment of the 2 left turn lanes. One of the things that we found that was happening with those angle type crashes is people are inching up, and they can't see the through traffic that's coming. They start to make the turn and they're actually struck by a vehicle that's going either eastbound or westbound. This alignment allows us to give better sight lines because it allows those vehicles to inch up in their own space so they can actually see a through moving vehicle at the intersection. So it creates a safer condition in terms of sight lines. Now on the Wood Street approach, this is going northbound, so traffic that's heading over the Rourke Bridge itself. We're restriping the 2 lanes that are there to make the lane closest to the center line. It's a left turn and a through travel lane. And then the lane closest to the curb becomes a through right turn lane. That allows us to improve the traffic signal timing and phasing that's there. We're going to be actually altering it so the traffic that wants to make a left-hand turn actually is going to go on 2 separate movements. So it gives us some more capacity to clear out the queue that's happening on the approach that's here. Now on the Rourke Bridge approach, we're limited in terms of what we can do, as you might imagine, because very quickly you get to the bridge, and the bridge is essentially the capacity constraint that's there. It's only got so many lanes going over it. And so we can only do so much in terms of improving the roadway before the Rourke Bridge itself. What was apparent in our discussions with the city traffic engineer, and what we saw in the area, was that as you're coming over the bridge, so now you're heading into the intersection itself, one of the more significant improvements that we could do is actually provide a lane use sign, and you'll see it. We've got an overhead sign that's being proposed in this area here that will be visible as you're coming over the bridge. It queues back for some distance. It queues back onto the bridge deck itself. By providing this sign that people will be able to see, it'll be mounted over the lanes. What it allows us to do is sort the traffic out so that you know if you want to make a left-hand turn, that you need to change lanes here. Essentially, you want to be in the lane closest to the center line. More importantly, if you want to go through or go right, you know that you should not be in that lane next to the center line so that people have the opportunity to shift lanes so that we can get better capacity at the intersection, because a lot of what's happening is people come over the bridge and then they have to sort themselves out. They're in the wrong lane. They have to put the blinker on, try to merge into traffic. So that does create some reverberations and more queuing on the bridge. So this is a mast arm mounted sign, lane use sign, that allows people to see it as they're coming over the bridge, give them enough time to get in the correct travel lanes. The other thing you see in terms of the improvements here, the traffic signal is very old. The system, the computer that's actually controlling the system, it's more than 10 years old. We're proposing to replace it. That allows us to do some different things in terms of the timing and phasing, essentially optimize it. So they're squeezing every ounce of capacity we can out of the signal, making it more efficient, putting in sensors in the pavement here so that they can detect when vehicles are approaching the intersection and the extent of the queue, so that we're more efficiently using the limited resources in terms of the capacity. We can squeeze as much capacity out of it as possible. You'll also see pedestrian improvements, you'll see reconstruction of sidewalks, new crosswalks being put in, important new wheelchair ramps at all of these intersections. We want to make sure it's accessible, again, it's walkable. We have the bus stop, we want to take advantage of that. We need to make sure it's accessible, so you see reconstruction of sidewalks. You do see a crosswalk also being introduced in this area here. So this is just to the east of Edward Street. Again, we want to make sure that this site is walkable to the neighborhood area. So we're providing sidewalks, crosswalks, curb ramps to be able to have pedestrian access to the pharmacy itself. In terms of the neighborhood area, we have committed to developing, working with the city to design and construct neighborhood traffic calming features. So basically on Columbia Street and Canal Street, we would be working with the city to come up with a separate traffic study that just deals with implementation of neighborhood traffic calming measures. And then once we've designed in consultation with the city and with the neighborhood, what would be some appropriate devices to reduce cut-through traffic to the neighborhood, slow travel speeds down through the neighborhood, we would also construct those measures that were agreed to. We do see that that would probably be a separate process that would happen with neighborhood meetings and consultation with the city planning department to make sure that we've got measures that are something the neighborhood would embrace as well. That is a very brief summary of the traffic study. I can answer any specific details that you might have or questions, either now or later on in the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Attorney Flood, do you have anybody else on behalf of the applicant who wants to speak?
That's basically what I have, Mr. Lynette.
I know this is not a public hearing, but if anybody here in the audience has any questions or any concerns they want to speak, please feel free to come up. Come to the microphone, please. And you can ask your questions through the board, and then maybe we can turn around and ask them through the applicant. It's not a public hearing, but if you're here, we'll consider any questions that you may raise now so we can address them, hopefully. Just give us your
My name is Richard Souza. I live at 101 Ursula Street in Lowell. My question was for the traffic person. The entrance and exit, I assume it's an exit, leaving from Walgreens, at the intersection where Wood and Middlesex is, there's an entrance there. Is that going to be a do not enter, or are they going to be able to just cross Middlesex Street to that? And also, would it be a right-hand turn only when you're leaving Walgreens on Middlesex Street?
Jeff, would you mind responding to that if you could? Not at all. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
I apologize. I should have described circulation because that's a very good point. The access to the project on Middlesex Street, it's located approximately 200 feet from the intersection itself. It is a right-in, right-out driveway only. There's a raised center island in there, triangular shaped, that forces the traffic around in one direction or the other. As you look at the plan as well, you can see that there's also signs indicating no left turn entering from Middlesex or exiting from the driveway. And then as John had mentioned, the site engineer, we have two driveways off of Edward Street. Those are both full access driveways.
Jeff, while I have you there, can I just ask you a question? I know you said that, can you just give me what you prepared, that the roadway will, how it accesses the soccer field?
I'm sure.
Just so people who are watching, I mean, I'm sure that's the concern of a lot of soccer people. They want to know how we're going to get there. Is it a safety issue?
Right.
So if you could, please.
What we're doing in terms of Edward Street, so Edward Street today is approximately through the center of the building. It's being relocated to the east of the project. So essentially, it's the easterly boundary of the project. It's just opposite, almost opposite Connell Street. What we're doing in terms of access into Edward Street and back into the soccer fields, we're constructing a left turn lane if you're heading eastbound on Middlesex Street. So you'll have a separate turning lane to be able to enter into Edward Street and obtain access into the soccer fields. Exiting, it will be the same as it is today. It'll be a single lane coming out. You can make left or right-hand turns there. You can also make the right-hand turn in from Middlesex Street. So the new feature, in essence, is a left turn lane if you're heading eastbound to be able to turn on Edward Street.
Just another quick question. When you talk about I know some of these issues will be coming up. When the cut-throughs into the city neighborhood streets, I know you want to deal with that in the future, but what are some of the ideas you usually try to do when you try to reduce that or address that issue in the future? I know you say you want to meet with them and see what their plans are, but I'm sure in traffic you've had these consequences in the past and have remedies try to fix them. So if you can give us just some highlights on those,
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah, there's a lot of measures that can be implemented, and it's really, it's up to the neighborhood, but also with the Department of Public Works and the police and fire departments. We can either do raised features, which sometimes are not things that police or fire like to have. So those could be raised crosswalks, they could be speed humps, things like that. Essentially, we change the elevation of the pavement over the small area about 3 inches. So as you're driving along, this is something you'd rise up about 3 inches and then come back down. It's typically done over 10 to 15 feet in terms of how wide it actually is. That's one thing that can be done. It would be repeated maybe at 2 or 3 locations along the roadway. Other ways to deal with it is you could have segments of it that are just one way. So we would take one portion of the street, maybe make it one way heading northbound so that traffic could only head in one direction, but not come back in the other direction. So that cuts down on the volume of traffic, but it does impede access. So that's something that's got to be weighed out. The other things that we do is we can also pinch the roadways down themselves. If there's, where you've got on-street parking, a lot of times what we'll do is maybe take the roadway from 24 feet and narrow it down to somewhere around 22 to 20 feet. So physically pull the curb lines out. And what that does is it slows the traffic down. Also, if someone's trying to divert to head down the road as they're looking down the street itself, it doesn't look like it's a straight shot because the curbs actually pinch in. So as you're looking at it and trying to decide, I'm in the back of this traffic, I'm going to jump off and maybe use this street to connect up, you don't see it as a thoroughfare. You actually see it as, geez, that road looks narrow, I'm going to stay where I am. So that's another feature that can be done, as well as physically changing the alignment of the road. So you can physically make a jog in it. So again, what it does is it doesn't look like it's straight. And if you're driving down it, you've got to slow down because you've got to make this maneuver. So there's a lot of measures. Those are just some of the typical ones that are employed.
And then sometimes signage, I imagine, like no through traffic, even though if it does cut through.
Yes, no access to Middlesex Street, things like that, no outlet. I mean, there's a lot of signs like that that can also be done that are effective as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I think another gentleman had a question. Sure, if you could, please, sir.
John Hamlet, 495 Varnum. 35% of the traffic is coming from Pawtucketville, and I'd be very interested in the traffic studies being expanded into that neighborhood, anything across the Rourke Bridge. So that's just a statement of interest.
Okay. Jeff, if you know if anything's been done over there, or if you can respond to that. He's from the other side of the bridge, which would be coming in from Pawtucketville. And I know you say it's tough with the Rourke Bridge.
Yeah, I think actually, we did do a study of that, and not as a part of this project. I did it as a part of another study. I'm trying to recall if conditions were any different on that side. I think the volumes might have been a little bit lower, but I also think it's a state road when we get on the other side of the bridge versus this side. But yeah, right. That's something we can take a look at. It's
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience have a question before I turn over to the board members? Yes.
Again, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, for the record, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. And any improvements to that part of Middlesex Street will be greatly appreciated. I sometimes walk around that area, particularly during the spring and summer, and I see a lot of the heavy traffic. So I think the improvements that are being proposed are excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gold. Anybody else have any further comments? If not, I'll turn it over to any board members.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Chairman, if I may, to Jeffrey Durek, the traffic engineer, I have some questions. Relative to the proposed exit closest to the intersection of Wood and Middlesex, is I'm trying to understand the concept behind here, because I believe part of the attraction of abandoning Edward Street and having your proposed Edward Street move further away from that intersection, and also further away from where you have the double lanes is kind of the rationale or the advantage of moving that, but then in that same breath, you're actually putting a exit closer to that intersection, and it comes out where there are double lanes. And I mean, I can just see cars coming. It's a neat turn if you're going directly onto the Rourke Bridge, but if somebody wants to just continue to go straight down Middlesex Street towards North Chelmsford, you're gonna cut across basically the lane where cars are going onto the Rourke Bridge to go straight. I just, is it crucial to have an exit out in that location? I just think that defies the logic of the benefit of moving Edward Street further away and then having that dump out there.
Well, I think in terms of being able to egress from the site in that location, the critical thing is sight lines. As you mentioned, the traffic that's, I won't say whipping around that corner there, but the traffic that's making that right-hand turn is obviously going, if they get up to the intersection, at a higher rate of speed than the through traffic. So we did make sure that we've got adequate sight lines. We're looking in the direction where that traffic might be coming. I mean, you have to yield to the traffic that's approaching you before you can exit. It's under stop control. So in terms of it operating safely, it should be able to operate safely because it meets all of the necessary criteria for it. In terms of actual capacity itself, we expect most of the traffic is actually going to come out the relocated Edward Street intersection, and the reason for it, again, is because of the fact that you're further from the intersection itself, coming out at the back of the intersection. When we did our analysis, we did not assume a lot of utilization of the exit just because of that, because of the queuing we saw. Is it critical for the site to function? It can function without it. If it's left on the plan, it can function safely because it meets all of the engineering criteria for safely. Our opinion is that that intersection, the relocated Edward Street, will be used the most because it's further from the intersection. People will be more comfortable exiting from Edward Street, relocated.
I mean, that's the logical thing, and that's, matter of fact, as I look at that, if you're really talking about the advantage of moving Edward Street, I think it's not to have a spot here where you're coming out and having all of your traffic enter and exit through Edward Street. And you have two forms of egress along
Right.
Edward Street. And then you're coming out into single lanes.
Correct.
Which makes a heck of a lot more sense than what you're proposing over here.
Yeah, we think drivers are going to be more comfortable using relocated Edward Street just because of all the reasons that you described.
So I would propose just not even having this. That's really what I would propose. If you're here to get our recommendation and our
Yeah,
input,
we are. Yes, we
I
are.
would propose not having that. Having said that, I would also take a look at that entrance on Edward Street, because as I look at this, it looks like this is where everybody on the site's converging to get to the drive-through. Now, we've had experience with drive-throughs with pharmacies. They're not a high-traffic generator. I understand that concept, so, but I would look at that intersection as far as signage and markings as well. And if you could, you mentioned that you were widening Middlesex Street, and I'm just trying to, I wish I had an existing conditions
Right.
versus what's being proposed, just so I can understand
Sure.
how much and where and.
It's along the project's frontage itself, and it primarily occurs in the area where relocated Edward Street is itself. We're reconstructing and pulling the curb line actually into the project site to get additional room for those two lanes. You essentially have, if you're heading westbound, you've got a left turn lane, you've got a through lane, and then you have that slip right-hand turn lane. So we're doing some widening in the vicinity of the project so that what we do is we allow for traffic to have two lanes of stacking up in front of the site themselves. So the widening is actually taking place along the frontage of the site.
It would be helpful if you, and I don't know
Yes.
what's involved is when you come to
It's
for
easy
the
enough to
public
do.
hearing to kind of show that, so we can see it, yeah, that would be helpful. And if you could define extending the left turn lane on the opposite side, because I could tell you, when you try to pull out of that spot where the market basket is, it's just that's not a fun experience with the CVS right across from over there. I'm just curious as to if If you could describe that a little bit better.
Right, it's best in this approach here, so this is the eastbound approach, we're restriping, so that what we're doing is extending the area where the left turn lane is. I think we're extending it so it's at least 200 feet, it's shy of that, it might be 100 to 150 feet, so we're adding about 50 to 100 feet to that left turn lane so that it allows more room for that queue to actually stack in a separate lane.
So the configuration of the road doesn't change?
Does not.
It's just
It's-
the marking?
It's the markings that change, that's correct.
Okay. And I'm looking at the, thank you very much, by the way, thank you. Just the elevations, very quickly here, Mr. Flood. These look similar to, matter of fact, the Walgreens that's being built on Bridge Street, as far as the facade, and, I mean, is that pretty much what we're looking at here?
Well, that's a preliminary plan.
Okay,
It's probably a Walgreens plan, Jerry.
it looks pretty much, yeah, okay, just,
Is that, Joe, you think?
But we'll have a final plan.
yeah, how many stories is,
It's one story.
is it one story? One story plus the tower. Okay. And then the lighting scheme for the, because this is a large parking area, I don't know how much lighting you're looking at here as far as,
It hasn't been developed at this point, so we haven't gotten into that, but obviously we would be, cognizant of the surroundings when you do develop the lighting plan to make sure it's not too bright yet safe enough to, to handle the customer traffic.
all right, good, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Mr. Lockhart, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple, you've done a very good job of explaining your traffic control improvements here. My concern is pedestrian safety, and I think I can see what's going on in the plan here, but if you could just spend a few moments on sidewalks, where they are, and how pedestrians are going to access this site.
There's sidewalks along both sides of Middlesex Street, so I'll start again from the project and then work our way towards the intersection. The issue with the sidewalks is making sure that they're compliant with the accessibility requirements. And what we found is that there's not a lot of, I don't believe there's any curb ramps out there, and if there are any wheelchair ramps, they don't meet the standards. So essentially what we're doing is, along the project's frontage, we'll be reconstructing the sidewalks. So they will be all brand-new sidewalks. Locations, and this is on the south side of Middlesex Street, locations where there are existing sidewalks, what we'll be doing at each of the corners is reconstructing the corners so that there is an accessible, per Architectural Access Board requirements, wheelchair ramps. So we'll be constructing new wheelchair ramps on each of the corners of all of the streets opposite the project, and then striping crosswalks across those. The sidewalks are wide enough to meet those requirements, but the absence of the wheelchair ramps means it's not accessible. It doesn't meet the definition of being accessible. We are constructing a crosswalk, and we've shown this crosswalk location. This is just east of relocated Edward Street and east of Canal Street. We did look at potentially providing a crosswalk right at that intersection. We're slightly offset from that. And the reason is there's not enough room for us to actually put those curb ramps in. So we cannot locate a crosswalk right at the intersection because of utility poles, there's a fire hydrant, and we do not have the depth that's required in order to allow for a wheelchair to actually get onto the sidewalk and then turn to go either up or down Middlesex Street. By relocating it just to the east of the intersection, that allows us to get those wheelchair ramps in place there. So now we'll proceed towards the intersection itself. So now we've got a reconstructed sidewalk along the project frontage. We've installed wheelchair ramps and crosswalks along the south side of Middlesex. And then as we get to the intersection itself, there are crosswalks today across the, this is the north leg, so the Rourke Bridge side, that allow you to get from one corner. This is the northwest corner. You cross to the island that's there, you cross over to the other island, and then you cross over to the project side. So there's crosswalks that are in place there, no wheelchair ramps. So we have to reconstruct a sidewalk along the corner here on the northwest side. We reconstruct the island area to provide wheelchair access to the island. There's an existing pedestrian push button that exists in the island that actually needs to be relocated, so we'll be moving that so it's near where the crossing takes place. restripe the crosswalk across the Rourke Bridge side, and then doing the same thing on the other island, constructing wheelchair ramps, reconstructing the sidewalk, and providing a crosswalk. On the south side of the intersection, there is an existing crosswalk. All we really need to do there is rebuild the corners to put in the wheelchair ramps, restripe that crosswalk. And then there is a crossing also, I believe it's on the west side, so we'll be doing the same thing. So essentially, in terms of pedestrian accessibility, we're reconstructing sidewalks, adding the crosswalks, changing out all the pedestrian push buttons because they don't meet standards. They're in poor condition. They'll all be replaced at the intersection. When we replace the computer controller that's in there, all of the timing, so when you do push the button, there's a certain amount of time it gives you to cross the street, all of that gets changed and updated to current standards. The current standards actually allow a longer time to cross the intersection. And that is in our calculations when I talked about improvements in capacity. We did build that in there to say if someone pushes the button, what happens at the intersection. All of that gets updated.
How about along the relocated Edwards Street and also access to the building itself from the perimeter sidewalks?
There's sidewalks along relocated Edward Street that provide access. Once you've crossed the street, you're able to walk along Edward Street, I believe either side. There's crosswalks to get over to the project site and internal sidewalks. The sidewalk also leads you up to the playing fields. So the important thing is we're, again, providing accessibility to the project from the neighborhood. There's also accessibility to the playing fields from the neighborhood, walkable by way of separate sidewalks. So the one crossing and then sidewalks along Edward Street that get you up to where the playing fields are.
Very good, thank you. One other question, are there any standalone pillar signs planned at this point in time? There's nothing on the plan, I don't believe. It's all mounted to the side of the building.
Yeah, I believe there would be a pylon sign or a sign proposed along the, by Edwards.
Could you point that out where? That might go?
Thank you. Right about in that area there.
All right, by Edwards Street.
Yeah.
Okay. How high might that be?
At this point, I don't know. We haven't developed the final sign package. So we'd obviously look to, at code and see what would be allowed.
Thank you.
Yes, any question?
No, that's all.
Attorney Claremont?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question on the vehicle trips. I'm sorry, you had mentioned that you anticipate an additional 952 vehicle trips in and out of the site. Is that correct?
981 on an average weekday, so 491 entering and 491 exiting.
Okay. Now, of those vehicle trips, do you anticipate that's all new traffic, or is that, perhaps people that are already going through that intersection anyway?
Very good point. It's new. So we've already taken credit for the fact that in our analysis, it assumes that 25% of the traffic coming to the site will be drawn from the existing traffic stream that's out there. That is a number that we're held to by state standards. We can't use anything higher than that. The actual volume of traffic for pharmacies that is considered new is about 50%. Based on nationwide studies, says about half of the traffic is actually derived from people that are already in the area. The other half may be new coming exclusively because we added a Walgreens.
Okay. And in terms of the roadway improvements that you're suggesting, is there going to be some widening of the road, or is it, where is that occurring?
The widening occurs just along the segment of Middlesex Street by the project site. And again, what it's doing is it's allowing for more traffic to actually get up to the light. So from the one-lane section here, once you pass relocated Edward Street, and here's the left turn lane we're adding, you can see it opens up very quickly into the 2 lanes that are there. That's done by widening in the vicinity of the project site. The widening starts roughly where existing Edward Street is, and then it's being actually pushing the curb line north into the project site to allow more room to get up 2 lanes up to the intersection.
And is that what allows this sort of dedicated turn lane going left into the site?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Right. And Mr. Frechette was talking about that intersection closest to the main that entrance, closest to the main intersection. And as I'm looking at that, it looks to be a right turn only that would jump onto the Rock Bridge. And then coming in, there's an arrow with a sign that says drive-through. But that's not dedicated to the drive-through.
It's not, all it does is it gives motorists direction that if they want to go to the drive-through and they've entered here, that instead of going around this way, it tells them to wrap around to get into the lane here. It's not meant as the exclusive entrance to get into the drive-through, no, not at all.
All right. So when you're coming westerly then up Middlesex Street, presumably, if you were going to go into that entrance into the site, you've already gone past the Edward Street entrance.
That's exactly right.
I'm not certain why people would go up to that entrance where Edward
Right,
Street
unless
is.
you.
You
right,
had to
unless
go
you
by
missed-
that.
You had to go
begin.
by it, right. And hopefully, it was describing the location of the sign, that sign there would give you enough visibility coming down Middlesex Street to tell you should turn. That's the first way to get into the site.
Okay, all right. And you mentioned meeting with city officials and perhaps neighborhoods about the traffic calming suggestions and procedures. When is that going to be going on? Is that,
Well, I would expect that, I mean, it would be, what we've offered right now is mitigation for the project. So it's structured right now, so it would be a condition that would be placed on this site plan that we would say as a condition of the approval, the applicant, would meet with, would work with the city and the neighborhood groups to develop a traffic calming plan. And then the developer would be responsible for implementing the results of what that study would say.
so it's not anticipated those meetings would occur before you come back in with a definitive plan?
We weren't anticipating it when we prepared the traffic study. No, that's correct.
But your study is completed.
The traffic study's been completed, absent comments that we're receiving tonight, and it has been submitted to the planning department and the city traffic engineer for review as well.
Okay. Was there a separate peer review done on the traffic study?
No, but it has it's been sent to a peer review consultant as well, because I know there's a third-party consultant that we forwarded the traffic study to.
Okay, so,
It's my understanding that tomorrow night, we've delivered a check for the peer review.
Okay.
The city council,
has to accept it.
there's a vote on the agenda tomorrow night to accept it. So the money's there, and they went out to bid, and they have someone to do it, so.
Okay. So that's still to come, the peer review? Okay. All right, I have no other questions, thank you.
I just have a couple, and I think I'll stick with you, Jeff. A couple of things I'm thinking of is, going back to what Mr. Fischett picked up, when you're coming out of Walgreens to take the right to go towards the Rourke Bridge. So I would say the most difficult problem that would be is if someone came out there to take a right, if they didn't want to go on the Rourke Bridge, if they want to go straight. So now they have to kind of cut across the accelerating lane to get to the middle lane to come to the intersection to proceed through or take a left.
Yes,
So that would be probably a little difficult.
agreed, yes, and with the queuing at the light as well, trying to get out of there, that's right. That's why it's been shown, we don't think it's going to get a lot of use for a lot of the comments that have been made. Common sense would say it's not going to get a lot of traffic using it.
And sometimes people will learn that by behavioral instincts and find out, I won't do that next time, but experimental, they may do so.
Right, that's correct.
If, by any particular reason, you decided not to go with, just say that exit coming out, and kept the entrance going in. And then, I see if you come down Edward Street, you come into Edward Street, and you have an entrance coming in on your left-hand side, correct? That'd be the first?
That's correct, yes.
How far down is that right off the roadway? Not too far, correct?
No, I would just estimating it's probably about 50 feet from the curb line going in, at tops, it's probably about 50 feet.
And then you have another one down towards the rear. You can come in and out that way as well.
Yes, that's correct.
Was there any thought in pushing back that first one back a little further, so you didn't have the people who were trying to come out of there being stacked up inside your lot that may interfere with your queuing for your drive-through?
I think that's something that we can take a look at, because I think of our experience and your experience in looking at what actually happens in terms of queuing. There's not a lot of queuing in the drive-through, meaning that we can look at relocating this a little further back, because it's not going to stack up based on the number of vehicles that we've shown here. So there's some opportunity to move it back to get more room separation from this intersection.
Yeah, because we had a similar project a long time ago on the Market Basket on the bottom of Clark Road by Tewksbury.
Yes.
And when they first came in, they had a exit coming out at the time by where the Kmart was, and it was very close to the set of lights.
Yes.
As a result of that, that traffic coming out of that parking lot backed all the way up into the lot. After realizing what happened, Market Basket themselves blocked off that, pushed it all the way back, and the traffic flow changed a lot. It made it a lot smoother, the lights were there too, but the fact of the people, like even here now, you'd have, it's gonna bottleneck the people coming in and getting out of that site right there, and the result of them pushing it back upon their own, figuring out what that bottleneck
Right.
created,
To come out
it
here.
changed the whole traffic. So I'm not saying that's the answer, whether you'd consider moving it back just a little bit, whether it's all the way back in the middle, because even if you put it in the middle, it still wouldn't affect your parking plan, would it?
Well, I think obviously we can pick up some spaces as you slide it.
I mean, that's
Right.
just something where it's so close to there. Just thinking how that may affect your traffic flow with the pharmacy drive-through behind there, and then does that give consideration? If it does, do you move the pharmacy drive-through to, and I know you have mostly deliveries in the back, would you end up putting it to the left side? Just some
Yeah.
consideration.
No, we can take a look at
Just
that.
some thoughts of experience that we've seen in the past. Where you have that exit so close to that intersection, does that help or hinder in and out?
No, we'd rather do it first than experience the
Yeah, I mean,
thing
that's
of
the Market
building it and
Basket.
have to move it
We
because
mentioned
it
it,
doesn't
and on their
work.
own, they found out it's
Right.
not working, and
Right.
people weren't happy with it, so they closed it back. They moved the whole thing back, cut a new curb cut in, and cut the new entranceway in. They pushed it right back to the middle of the site. I think Mr. Flood knows exactly what I'm talking about. I know he shops there, and when we first came in, we suggested it, and they were fine with it, but they learned on their own that it worked much, much better. And you didn't have the people jockeying for each other to get into the lane to get to the light.
Right.
So everybody just took their turn, and there was less of that edging
Right.
and, trying to cut each other off, basically. And one other thing, I think, if I could just ask one or two questions of the engineer, I think it was John, okay? On the back there, I see where it says 15R, 43R, 10R. Is that a railing that's gonna be there? Is that what the R stands for?
No, that's a radius.
Oh, the radius turning in there?
Yep.
So what's that line itself, that black line? Is that just,
The edge of curb, I believe, the
Okay.
dashed line. Yep.
so is there any separation besides this property location and the people in the back here, which is the LeBlancs? Or is it just a roadway? Or is there anything to separate where they are now?
Well, there'd be curbing and then landscaping behind the curbing.
Okay, so the curbing and landscaping is something that you're proposing, and not what,
Yeah, as part of, we're putting the curbing as you come in and.
so that
work in
post
that area.
railroad fence, that's something you'd put in, or that's,
The,
see where it says the post railroad fence, looks like maybe some trees there, is that existing, or what's partially going in?
I believe that's going in. but-
Which would be, where the shed is by and then I'm just curious if there's some division between that property owner and from the site. You understand what I'm getting at, or?
Yeah, no, that would be proposed in that area, I believe.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And the only other question I have, I see across from the back site that goes in and out, across from that, you have another entranceway, just says stop, and it goes out to a paved parking lot. Do you see what I'm talking
Oh,
about?
to the side, yeah, just providing cross connection to that area if the abutter
Right.
wanted
So-
that.
So that's the parking lot that's,
Yeah, that's currently there.
okay, I know which one you mean, okay.
Right, yeah, just make sure you have access to it.
Yeah, okay, I forget what's on that site now, but I know there's several things on that site.
Temple is the
Right,
Indian temple.
right. So that goes right out into that lot there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions. Any of the board members have any further questions from any discussion?
Just a comment, maybe, won't come as any surprise that this is gonna generate a lot of interest and concern, you know, how difficult that intersection is. And I think you opened with a statement that you wanna make sure that, you know, that the conditions don't deteriorate or aren't worsened by the increase in traffic, but I think it's important. I understand the, you know, the roadway improvements that you're suggesting and the dedicated turn lanes and the change to the signalization, and I think that those are all good improvements. I don't know if there's any opportunity, even with the addition of this site and the traffic, to improve the intersection. I mean, that's what everyone will be looking for, so I think that's the key. If we can show, through whatever improvements are being suggested, that the traffic congestion and the safety would improve, I think that's gonna go a long way to furthering your project.
Any more?
No, I think.
From the applicant? Okay.
We appreciate the concern on the traffic, we know that. And that's why Jeff has spent a lot of time on it. So.
Well, I want to thank you for your input, and I want to thank Rich, John, and Mark for their comments as well. Makes it easier for us as planners to listen to some of the concerns. We wish you well, and anticipate
Have a
we'll see
nice
you in the
holiday.
future.
Have a
And happy
nice
holidays to
holiday.
you, too. Okay, we'll take 5, yeah. Thank you. We're going to take 2 minutes if you want to speak with him. He has to go to the minute, I think Mark wants to talk to him. Okay. We're just going to take a 2-minute break while they're bringing down the proposals till we go on to our next segment of the agenda.
You got a card with you, John? Just give me the card, John.
Yep.
What did I miss? What did I miss? Just about that?
Moving along with the hearing, we have, under other businesses, we have the notices from the Zoning Board of Appeals. I believe we have 5 or 6 matters before us this evening, and we got comments tonight from the engineer on those, when I put them. We got comments tonight from the, did you get these?
Oh, yeah, those came in tonight, yeah.
Minutes.
So these are matters that are going to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals for public hearing on December 13th, 2010, at 6:30 PM here at the City Hall Council Chambers. These matters come before the Planning Board for recommendation only. The first matter is Ray Nadara, 1148 Bridge Street, to install an internally illuminated wall sign and a 1 freestanding sign pursuant to section 6.3 of the zoning ordinance. It appears that there was a, you want to put a pizza shop sign in there. We do have pictures in our packet. Unless the board members want to refer this to our sign design review planner.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pass this along to the sign planner,
I'll second.
EPD.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. The second matter is for a special permit, and this is also a sign. This is Wong Dung, 724 Chelmsford Street, and this is for a internally illuminated wall sign as well. This is on Chelmsford Street. This, I believe, they had a previous sign allowed, which was for a dentist, and now they want to put in a different type of sign for a different type of use. We want to review this as sign planner as well.
Yes, again, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to send it to design review.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. The next matter is for P&F Realty Trust. This is located at 9 Dunbar Ave, and this is to maintain parking for residential units without the required setback from the lot line, pursuant to section 610. Tonight, we also received some comments from our city engineer in regards to some of these variances and special permit requests. We do have some comments this evening on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be abstaining from voting on this, this issue.
And I don't want to jump on board, but I'll be abstaining as well, so it's up to you.
Okay.
Can we do it? Do it?
The recommendations, I think you can do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let me see, we got from the city engineer, it says this applicant has worked with the engineering and transportation engineer on this proposal. The plans presented represent the latest discussions between these groups. The applicant performed work on his driveway without a permit, in which time engineering staff notified him of his violation. Being a legal two-family, he is trying to provide 4 spaces. The original proposed request has parking to be in the right-of-way, which was denied by the engineer and blocked by the law department. There's also a safety concern with space number 4, it is too close to the corner. Traffic turning off the boulevard could hit vehicles coming out of the space. During an on-site meeting, the applicant agreed to angle the 2 spaces. It is hard to tell from the plans if he has done that as of yet. There is a sufficient real estate to provide 4 spaces in stacked alignment. The applicant refused this option. Would you have any comments on that?
Well, I just make a motion for, to deny.
Okay, I'll second that motion to deny. Could we just have, make sure that,
It's just,
Planning Department does give this comment to this, to the ZBA, the one that we referred to tonight from the engineer when it goes before their packet? And I'd say one of the reasons for denial is because of the recommendation from the city
the
engineer.
engineer,
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be the reason, Rich, behind it?
yes.
Okay, so we have 2 votes to deny. The next matter is 1115 Westford Street. This appears to be a sign as also, internally illuminate wall sign pursuant to the zoning code. We also want to refer that to our sign planner.
So move, Mr. Chairman?
Motion's made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. The next matter is Epping Street. This is Edward Jensen, and this is 73 Epping, to repair an existing driveway and have a curb cut exceeding the maximum length pursuant to section 6.1. The city engineer also has a comment on that matter. That the applicant performed work on his driveway without a permit, at which time engineering staff notified him of his violation. The applicant came in for a permit, and engineering went out to do an existing condition inspection. At that time, it was found that the sidewalk and curb had already been removed without a street opening permit and dig-safe number, and a retaining wall had been installed. The city's 2008 GIS aerial photograph was used as a baseline for the existing condition. Engineering denied the permit based on the proposed parking was too close to the property line, too close to the house, and the curb cut exceeded what was allowed by zoning. City sidewalk and curbing have been removed by the applicant. These had recently been installed by the city. The concrete cannot be replaced, but the curbing must be replaced and returned to the city. That's it. Comment by the city engineer.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make 2 comments? This is extremely helpful. I like this,
Yeah, I do too.
getting this,
Format, just the format.
this report. Aaron, I know this is the first time we get something like this, so
On these.
Well, it's the first time we've been able to get it before the planning board meeting. Usually, we will, if we get comments,
good.
it's a couple days before the zoning board, but we're trying to
yeah.
just
no,
make this happen more frequently. It is helpful.
This is helpful, and actually, it's nice to see that they're actually being proactive and going out there and finding violations and, addressing it, so it's extremely helpful. In this particular case here, certainly knowing what was put in place to give guidance on the placement of a driveway on the site, and I'm looking at the reason for doing so, and it truly doesn't meet the hardship definition. And quite frankly, if you're creating a wider curb cut, if it's you're concerned about the removal of snow, you're gonna have a wider section of where the plow piles everything up, so it actually kind of defeats the purpose, I think, of what's trying to be accomplished here. So I personally, I would recommend denial for this request, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes for denial. Moving along, the next matter we have is on New Lowell Properties LLC, 451, 457 Lawrence Street. This is the matter that came before us at the last meeting, and we made significant recommendations in regards to reducing, it was a 2-family that was turned into a 4-family. And we did address the parking, we did address the dimensional requirements, and we put quite a bit of conditions on that project. So since we did have a unanimous vote, I believe all 5 of us voted in favor of that. If board members still inclined, to go along with that previous vote, we could just have that recommendation that we did on that evening forwarded to the ZBA if all board members are comfortable with that.
Yes.
It's fine. If you need it as a motion, I'd make a motion to recommend approval with the same conditions that we put on the application before.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Chair votes yes. That completes our ZBA recommendations. I believe we also did receive a handout tonight in regards to a A&R report for review. Any board members have any questions on that? If not, if they want to take them up the next meeting, if they need a chance to digest them, that would be sufficient as well. Moving along, any questions on any notices from abutting towns or any general correspondences? I'll start with Alan, if we could. Any general correspondences from planning development?
Just to follow up on the Walgreens project and the peer review study that Rick Clammer asked about, as council had suggested, it's going to be on the city council's agenda tomorrow to actually, they had to develop an ordinance to accept a gift from the applicant. And TEC is the peer review engineering firm that did win the proposal, the request for proposals. You might recognize them. They did the traffic study and a lot of the site work for the Moolas, or the Market Basket on Bridge Street. They've done some work in the Hamilton Canal District, so they're familiar with the conditions in the city. So they've already received a copy of the transportation plan, and will begin their peer review as soon as we're able to get the check to them.
Would you have any idea what a time frame on that may be? I mean, if you do, if you don't, I mean.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it will at least take them a couple of weeks. But they will provide their peer review analysis and recommendations at least as long, but if not longer, prior that we usually get our comments to the board, so you could have more than a week to digest them.
So the comments would be funneled through planning and development like usual. Any other comments, then they'd come before us as board members as
That's right,
well? Okay.
right. They would
So when
be
you get
provided
copies
to-
of those, if you could forward them to us, so we have a chance to digest them.
You'll probably actually get those before we were able to go through everything else, but I don't believe, well, the applicant hasn't even submitted for the public hearings yet, so we're not looking at a public hearing until, January 20th at the earliest, most likely into February. So there's plenty of time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, or, no?
That's all I have for now.
Any other comments, any board members from other
Have none?
boards being on? No? Any other further comments? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye. Two things, and happy holidays to everybody, and we should make it home in time for kickoff. Go Patriots. Have a good night, everyone.
Good job,
Thank you.
Tom. Go Pats.